What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Ben on Sports. It's Friday, which means the NASCAR weekly preview prediction series is continuing. Moving on to week 5. The season is moving quickly. First intermediate track of the season in Las Vegas. Let's get into it. Ryan Blaney ends the hot streak. Tyler Reddick opens the NASCAR season, becomes the first driver ever to win the first 3 races of the season. Ran in the top 10 a lot of the day, but Ryan Blaney gets the win, passing Christopher Bell, who was probably the best car all day, at least most of the day. And Ryan Blaney, at a track he's very successful at, wins the race, becomes the second driver to win this season. First win for Ford on the year. And who would have thought that Chevy would be the odd manufacturer out? Chevy is the only manufacturer without a win. 3 for Toyota, 1 for Ford. The new short track package seemed good. They've been running those tires. The tire wear has been good going back to last season. But I like this horsepower, and I think it adds to the tire wear. There was quite a bit of passing. There was cars going from back to front a little bit. I think the short track package is getting better and better, so credit to NASCAR for working on it. Return of the usuals. The first 3 weeks of the season, kind of chaos. 2 drafting tracks and a road course. You saw the usual suspects up front. Team Hendrick, maybe not quite as much as you would normally expect for them, but you still saw Kyle Larson end up with a good day after going to the back. You saw William Byron around the top 10 all day. Chase Elliott was up there for a little bit. And Joe Gibbs Racing had a really good day. Joe Gibbs Racing had a lot of speed. All of the Joe Gibbs cars were in the top 5 at some point in that race. All of them showed top 5 speed pretty consistently. And Christopher Bell, like I said, might have been the best car. And then Team Penske just lived up to the hype, the expectation they have at Phoenix. Logano was really good. Blaney was really good. They were 2 of the best 3 cars, and Penske got the win. Return of the usual suspects this week in Phoenix, but kind of to be expected after the first 3 weeks of the season. Lots of passing and some wrecks. I think there was more passing than normal, and you would sometimes see one guy pass somebody for a position, get passed later on in the run, and then even later on in the run they were battling against. So it was really interesting to see how cars adapted over the course of the run. I still wish there was a long run. The only real long run was the first stage that went caution free. But other than that, because of all the cautions, there wasn't too many long runs. That's the only thing I want to see, because I think over the long run, with as much tire fall off as they should be dealing with, it could get really fun. And some wrecks too that Joey Logano were a part of. You saw some wrecks with tires going down, all kinds of stuff, which is why the cautions were big. Bowman still out for this week. Alex Bowman has won at Vegas in the next gen. He's a West Coast kid, likes being out in Vegas. Will not be competing this week. Instead of Anthony Alfredo, the sim backup driver, who you would think would be the person who gets tabbed or raced for the 48, it's actually going to be Justin Allgaier, and a O'Reilly Series legend. Justin Allgaier will be filling in for Alex Bowman in the 48 this week. Bowman out, missing his 2nd consecutive week. First intermediate of the season is Las Vegas, and intermediates are the bread and butter of the NASCAR. These mile-and-a-half intermediates are the bread and butter of the NASCAR season. You need to be good at them, and we are going to get our first look, although I always argue Vegas is pretty unique in how it's driven compared to some of the other intermediates. You're still going to get a first look, and I would expect that the usual teams will be towards the front. And is anybody eliminated in points? Obviously, there's probably some slower teams that you knew were never going to win in the first place, but Alex Bowman, he's going to be in a very tough situation when he gets healthy, if he gets healthy again, to make the playoffs. Chase Briscoe is in a very deep point situation. More on that later when I get to talk about individual drivers. There's a couple other drivers that I had that were in the 20s, but after the craziness of the first 3 weeks, last week was the first week that teams were really able to stack up points. But with Tyler, I don't think you can say anybody's eliminated, but there's definitely teams you can say are in more dire situations than others. But every team throughout the season is going to have a couple weeks where maybe you aren't your best, or you do get caught up in a wreck or something like that. Ross Chastain is another guy that's not where he expects to be in points. But the difference is some guys spread them out and get a little bit of advantage. Some guys don't spread them out. Sometimes you get them at the beginning of the season, and that really, really lowers your margin of error. So I'm not going to say anyone's necessarily eliminated that you would expect to see up front, but there are some drivers that need to get on a hot streak and they need to start it this week. Maybe that's the way I'll phrase it. All right, let's get into the history of the next-gen car at Las Vegas. There's been 8 races. There's 2 a season. The winners, the aforementioned Alex Bowman, won the first next-gen race here, March of 2022. Joe Logano, on the way to winning the championship, won in October of 22. William Byron, that super hot start to the season in 23, won this race. And then his teammate Kyle Larson in 2023 won this race in the fall. Always March, October for Vegas, huh? Last year, Kyle Larson went back-to-back and won the spring race. And then in the fall of 2024, Joey Logano, on the way to his 3rd championship, won it in 2024. Last year, the most unexpected winner of the group, Josh Berry, got his first and to this point only career win at Vegas. And then in a really fun race in the playoffs last year, Denny Hamlin with a great restart, winning last October. Best average finish, not somebody who's won here in the next-gen era, but somebody who gets good finishes. Ross Chastain at 7.6, Kyle Larson at 7.9, William Byron averaging a top 10, and that would be higher if Ty Dillon didn't completely take him out last playoffs with that infamous incident. Alex Bowman at 10.9, not racing this week, could open the door for somebody else to run well. And then Joey Logano with his 2 wins at 11.8. Another driver that did really, really well here in the next gen, I just didn't put it down because he's retired. Martin Truex has the best average finish out of everybody in the next gen. But again, he only has 6 races and retired, and last year being his first year of retirement. So I didn't want to put him here, but I do want to mention, because that could be important when looking at what teams are fast here, that Martin Truex was incredibly fast at Vegas. Never won, but did get 6 top 10s in the 6 races here. Most top 5s, 2 drivers are tied at 5 top 5s. Kyle Larson and Ross Chastain. Who would have thought they're the 2 best average finishes? 2 drivers tied at 4, Byron and Bell. 2 drivers tied at 3 top 5s, Alex Bowman, Kyle Busch. And 5 drivers are tied at 2 top 5s. Maybe the most surprising in this whole group, Daniel Suarez, and then Denny Hamlin, Tyler Reddick, Chase Briscoe, and Joey Logano. Joe Logano has 2 top 5s in 8 races here, and they were both playoff victories that led to championships. Isn't that a crazy stat? Most top 10s at Vegas in the next gen. 3 drivers are tied at 6. Byron, Chastain, Larson. Truex would be in that group if he wasn't retired. 4 drivers tied at 5. Christopher Bell, Tyler Reddick, Alex Bowman, and Denny Hamlin. And then 2 drivers are tied at 4 top 10s with Joey Logano and Kyle Busch. A lot of the same names, a lot of names from big teams are on this list. No surprise. So who are my favorites? I think this is a great week for Hendrick Motorsports to get their first win of the season and Chevy's first win of the season. Team Hendrick has the most drivers that are the most consistent at this track. I don't think that's going to change this week. I think you're going to see 2, potentially even 3 Hendrick cars in the top 5, running around the top 5 most of the day. Joe Gibbs Racing, they won the most recent race here. They've been fast on these intermediates, especially as of late. Bell has run really well here. Didn't get into victory lane. Has not gotten into victory lane, but has run really well. I already mentioned Denny Hamlin. Truex used to run really well here for Gibbs. So Hendrick is the clear favorite. I think Gibbs is right behind him. And then there's a little bit of a gap to Team Penske. They've been super inconsistent on intermediates. They've been very inconsistent at this track. Joey Logano seems to be good at Vegas, and he's won twice here, but those were both fall races. I'll be interested to see if Penske can bring speed for all of their drivers, and I'll be interested to see if Penske can start getting consistent at a Vegas track that they have won multiple races at. Trackhouse Racing. Daniel Suarez was really good here. with Trackhouse. Ross Chastain has been really good here. He's still there. I'm interested to see if Shane Van Gisbergen or Connor Zilic can find speed with Trackhouse this week. I think Trackhouse is usually going to be in this 4 or 5 range on a lot of tracks. And then number 5 was wide open. There's not a whole lot of other race teams that have good pedigrees in the next gen here. I was thinking of using RFK. That Busher and Keselowski and even Priest to an extent are kind of average finish wise, and where they run are kind of in that 12 to 15 range. 23XI, Tyler Reddick is just outside of being a top 5 driver on this track in the next gen. But Bubba Wallace hasn't been that strong. But they've also had a lot of speed to start the season. And as I said, Toyotas were fast at Las Vegas in the playoffs last year. And because of that, and the other team I want to mention is Spire Motorsports. Michael McDowell's been performing quite well this season. I'm pretty sure Spire Motorsports and Michael McDowell won the pole last spring, if I'm not mistaken. Spire's bringing consistent speed. Maybe Spire could have been this 15, but I went with 23XI. They've been fast all season this season. They've been super consistent, and I think 23XI is going to bring speed to Vegas this weekend. My driver rankings, Kyle Larson, number 1. I love Kyle Larson to win this race. He's on a 21-race winless streak. I think he breaks that this week at Vegas. Kyle Larson is my favorite to win, followed by his teammate, William Byron. Stats are skewed. I think he'd be right up there with Ross Chastain and Kyle Larson, an average finish if it wasn't for the Ty Dillon incident last race here in October. Give me William Byron too. Denny Hamlin doesn't have bad stats here. Won this race last fall. I think Denny Hamlin is going to be a factor, followed by Christopher Bell. Still has not yet gotten in victory lane at Vegas, but has gotten top 5 the last 2 times. I think Christopher Bell is going to continue from where he left off last Sunday. Joey Logano, I don't feel like it's right to put him too low on this list. Yeah, he has some inconsistencies, but he's also won this at this track twice in the last, I guess since 2022, but he won once in 2022, once in 2024. It's 2026. It's even year Joey Logano. Everybody knows how dangerous that is. Give me Joey Logano to be a contender this weekend. Ross Chastain, very good at having solid days here. Hasn't won a race here, but always seems to get a lot of points, have a good finish. I think the same thing happens this week. Ryan Blaney, I think, is going to find some speed at Vegas. Penske in the next gen has been inconsistent at a lot of intermediates, Vegas being chief among them. But I think Blaney is becoming one of the best, most consistent drivers on all track types in NASCAR. I think some of the inconsistencies that he had were gone last year. And last year he had a lot of DNFs. I think that if I don't think they're going to have that much DNF luck this year. I think Blaney's going to bring speed. I think they're going to be contenders just about every single week in that 12 car. And Blaney is firmly trying to put himself in that top echelon of drivers. And I think he has his best run at Las Vegas in a while and continues to get points and continues to try and catch up with Tyler Reddick. Speaking of Tyler Reddick, number 8 here, has a couple of good races here, does have a second place finish here. He's off to a hot start of the season, has off to a good point start, and I think that momentum continues. They have the ability to get it a solid top 10. Like I said, Toyota's been fast here. I think Tyler Reddick, with his momentum, he's not been one of the top performing drivers in this track in the next gen, does have some nice points days, does have some nice finishes. I give Tyler Reddick my 8. Chase Briscoe, number 9, he could be higher on this list, but the last 2 races, he's had top 5 speed. They've been running third, and then their car wrecked with a mechanical failure. That shouldn't be acceptable for a team at Joe Gibbs level. It's so hard to read this team. They've led laps in 3 of the 4 races. They've been top 5 in all 4 races this season. They've had speed at every race this season, but the finishes, the only good finish they have, it was second at Atlanta, and outside of that, they've been outside of the top 35 at every track, and that is not acceptable in my mind. It's a good thing to have speed, but you have to get the finishes. Briscoe could have been borderline top 5. I love Auto Racing Analytics. I don't know if you guys have seen them on Twitter, but they look at every track, and they can tell you if every car was able to run an optimal lap time, where that car would have finished in relation to the rest of the field, and they track the top 10. According to Auto Racing Analytics, last fall race here when Briscoe got a 4th, he was the fastest car on the track on terms of optimal lap time and would have won the race I think he got involved in something or had a bad pit stop that shuffled him back. Needless to say, Briscoe has had speed on intermediates. He qualified well here in the fall. He ran really well here in the fall, but he's had speed a lot. I would say since really starting last summer, he's had speed. They need to start finishing more often, and I can't trust them not to have a mechanical failure, or they'd be higher on this list. That's why Chase Briscoe was 9. Maybe some people don't even think he should be top 10. I think he deserves to be top 10. He's going to be in a fast car. Again, he's with that Martin Truex team that did so well. But guys, he's not higher because you can't trust him. That team has had something go wrong 2 weeks in a row. That's why I have Briscoe at 9. And then Chris Buescher at 10 has had some solid days here. Always seems to be running around the top 10, but never has top 5 speed. But Chris Buescher has been consistent all year. It's the name of the game for Chris Buescher. I think he'll be sniffing around for a top 10 again this week. Power rankings, everybody's favorite time, the power rankings. Well, I think 1 and 2 are obvious. Number 1, Tyler Reddick. Number 2, Ryan Blaney. Those are self-explanatory. I think it's hard to argue anybody else deserves to be in either of those spots. Kyle Larson had a good finish last week, had good qualifying speed. They got the car where they wanted to be by the end. Larson came away with a solid points day. Give me Larson at 3 going into a track he's been very good at. Denny Hamlin, another driver. Denny Hamlin had a better day than Larson. Denny Hamlin finally had a really good points day this year. Give me Denny Hamlin at 4. Chase Elliott found a way to a good finish. Was struggling through certain parts of the races, but Chase Elliott still kind of doing what he did last year. Maybe not always having race winning speed, but always finds a way to have a good points day. Apparently there's a civil war going on inside of the number 9 team fan base on Alan Gustafson versus Chase Elliott, and Gustafson being an awful crew chief, and the Chase Elliott fans saying Chase is saving him. I don't know if that's true or not. I'm not saying it's not true. I'm not saying it is true, but I think that that's something to watch with NASCAR's most popular driver. Right now, they're top 5 in points. They're finding ways to get good finishes. Haven't been great at Vegas in the next gen, but their team, the other 3 drivers that are part of that team, seem to be good there. Maybe Chase Elliott finally takes advantage of that this week. Christopher Bell had a solid week, probably the fastest car, got good stage points, finished the race in second, couldn't quite get the win. Christopher Bell has had speed more recently at Vegas than when the next gen first started going there. Christopher Bell right now 6th in the power rankings, but has a chance to jump into the top 4 with a good finish this week, in my mind. Same with William Byron. He's, hasn't had the same start of the season. We're used to William Byron being an electric starter and always starting super, super well to the season and getting a big advantage. Hasn't happened yet. Never far off for William Byron. This is a track he's good at. Maybe this is the week he gets hot. Bubba Wallace, I feel like it's disrespectful to have him 8 because he's still in such a high position in the points. Didn't have a great weekend at Phoenix, in my opinion. Hasn't been great at Las Vegas. Still good on points. But right now, in this section of the schedule and seeing the raw speed some of the other guys are having over him, it's hard for me to have him ahead of some of these other drivers. Joey Logano at 9. Again, okay. He's okay on points. Wrecked out. Clearly had speed at Phoenix. Until there's a little bit more consistency or until his point situation gets better, I can't move him too much higher on the list. Chase Briscoe with another bad week will fall out of the top 10. I have him at 10 because, again, they're showing speed, and that's still a really good team that showed what they can do when they get really hot last season after a slow start. But with the new point system, you can't dig yourself into too deep of a hole and expect to be able to dig back out of it at the end. This 19 Chase Briscoe team, man, 2 mechanical failures. I've never seen that happen. Definitely not twice in a row. That's rough, especially when you were running 3rd when the mechanical failures happen. Hopefully for the 19 team, this is the week they get it figured out. If not, they're going to keep dropping down the power rankings, because showing that you have speed and not finishing well due to mechanical failures is only going to keep you on my power rankings list for so long. So Chase Briscoe falls to 10 and in danger of falling much farther down on this list. Shane Van Gisbergen still at 11. Had a pretty good performance at Phoenix last week. Vegas is a tough track. And if he's top 5 in points, I think, right now, or he's 6th. Van Gisbergen's really good on points right now. If he has a good week at Las Vegas, I might be ready to buy Van Gisbergen as figuring out ovals and ready to move him up on this list. One more solid performance and I'll be there. Shane Van Gisbergen off to a fantastic start this season, getting him 11th. Steady Eddie Chris Buescher, not much to say. I think his name Steady Eddie Chris Buescher that I just gave him explains how I feel. Leaving him at number 12. That's right where I feel like he belongs. Ross Chastain, struggling with some consistency early on, maybe not getting the finishes he deserves. He's outside of the top 20 in points, but he has the ability, in my opinion, to make up ground fast. But for right now, Ross Chastain falls to 13. Ty Gibbs had a lot of speed, has looked really, really good the last 2 weeks. Ty Gibbs starting to figure it out, starting to get some points. Maybe that race win is coming soon. Give me Ty Gibbs joining the top 15 at 14. Ryan Preece, kind of a little bit worse version of Chris Buescher right now on the season, in my opinion. Ryan Preece is in danger of dropping even a little bit more. But right now, I'm going to leave him at 15 because I believe his equipment is at least a little bit better than some of the guys behind him. Number 16, Michael McDowell. Another good race. Another solid points day. McDowell is hovering around that playoff cut line. I believe right now he'd be in the playoffs if they started today. McDowell having a solid start to the season for Spire Motorsports. Had speed in the spring race at Vegas last year. I think the march could continue. Daniel Suarez, if he didn't get caught up in other people's messes, he could be having an even better season. He's still solid on points. He had plenty of speed at Phoenix. Daniel Suarez, 17. Brad Keselowski, the owner of RFK, okay week. I think Ford and RFK usually hover around that top 10, the top 15 at Vegas. I think Brad has the capability of doing so once again, maybe even a little bit better. The third of 3 RFK cars on my power rankings list right now at 18. Hocevar, not a great weekend last weekend, did show some speed, but didn't get the finish. And he hasn't shown a lot at Vegas, not as much as some of his teammates have. For example, McDowell has won pole here. Daniel Suarez secretly, or maybe quietly, not secretly, but quietly has some really, really good finishes and really good performances at Vegas. Carson Hocevar is going to need to take a step up to keep pace with everybody this week. But Hocevar still hovering around the playoff cut line, still has had speed at a lot of tracks. Can he finally finish off a race or put together an entire race? Hocevar at 19. AJ Allmendinger at 20. He's had an okay career at Vegas. He's still right around that playoff line in points right now. He had some speed at Phoenix, got into it with Joey Logano a little bit. I think Allmendinger has the ability to hang around a little bit in these point standings, and I'm going to leave him at 20 for now. That's all I have for you guys this week. Please like, comment, subscribe, follow me on X, find a couch and watch some sports this weekend. March Madness, guys, conference tournament championships are going to be finishing up this weekend. The bracket, the famous bracket, comes out on Sunday. NHL and NBA are in the swing of their playoff pushes. The World Baseball Classic will be decided soon. What a fun event that has been so far. So much going on in the sports world, and shortly after the WBC is over, opening day will be here for the MLB. So find a couch, watch some sports this weekend. There's plenty of great options. Take care of yourselves. Take care of your families. It's a crazy world. Peace out.